The heavy oak front door of my house usually greeted me with a sense of safety. But today, as I fumbled with the knob, balancing two overstuffed paper grocery bags, something felt undeniably wrong. The air on the porch was still, but inside, the silence wasn't the peaceful quiet I had come to cherish during my months of solitude. It was a hollow, echoing silence, the kind that screams that something vital is missing. I kicked the door shut behind me with the heel of my sneaker, the latch clicking into place. I walked down the hallway, the floorboards creaking familiarly under my feet. "Mom! Renly!" I called out, my voice bouncing off the walls. There was no answer, just the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I turned the corner into the living room and my world stopped. I dropped the grocery bags. I didn't mean to, but my hands simply lost their strength. A carton of eggs shattered on impact, the wet, yellow yolk seeping rapidly into the fibers of the expensive Persian rug cotto and I had bought on our honeymoon. I didn't care. I couldn't look down at the mess because I couldn't tear my eyes away from the wall above the fireplace. That wall was my sanctuary. It was the gallery where I kept Cotto alive. It held 15 beautifully framed black and white professional photographs of my late husband. There were candid shots of him laughing at our wedding, serious portraits of him working in his woodshop, and the one of us kissing in the rain in Paris. But now the wall was stark, blindingly white. It was naked. The photos were gone. The hooks remained, little metal scars protruding from the drywall, but the faces, his face, were missing. My mother, Fausta, walked in from the kitchen. She looked perfectly composed, wearing her Sunday best a day early, holding a steaming mug of coffee. She glanced at the broken eggs on the floor and sighed, a sound of pure irritation. "Mabry, really? You know how hard it is to get egg yolk out of wool. You need to be more careful." "Where are they?" I whispered, my voice trembling so hard it sounded like wind through dry leaves. My heart began to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "Where are Cotto's pictures? Where is my wedding portrait?" "We took them down," my younger sister Renly said, sauntering into the room behind our mother. She was scrolling through Instagram, the blue light of the phone illuminating her bored expression. "We're hosting the bridal brunch here next week. All those black and white photos of a dead guy were giving the room really bad vibes. It's depressing for the guests. I want a festive atmosphere, not a funeral home." The cruelty of her words took a moment to sink in, like a slow-acting poison. Bad vibes. She was talking about the love of my life, a man who had been buried only 8 months ago. Before I could scream, before I could demand she bring them back from the garage or wherever they had hidden them, a sound from outside froze my blood. It was the low, grinding rumble of a heavy diesel engine. Then, the distinct hiss of hydraulics. I bolted to the front window, tearing back the heavy velvet curtains so hard I heard stitches pop. Through the glass, I saw the massive green garbage truck idling at the curb. The mechanical arm was already extending, clamping its metal claws around the black wheelie bin Cotto had painted our house number on. "No," I gasped. I watched in slow-motion horror as the arm lifted the bin high into the air. It tipped upside down. I saw the black trash bags tumble out into the truck's hopper. And then, the sound that will haunt me forever, the sickening crunch of glass shattering and wood snapping as the compactor blade swept forward. I didn't think, I ran. I flew out the front door, stumbling down the porch steps, screaming at the top of my lungs. "Stop! Stop the truck, please." I sprinted down the driveway, waving my arms frantically. But the driver was wearing heavy noise-canceling headphones, bobbing his head to music. He couldn't hear my screams. He couldn't see my world ending in his rearview mirror. He pressed the gas, and the truck rumbled away, carrying the last physical pieces of my husband's smile to a landfill on the other side of the county. I collapsed on the dew-soaked lawn. The wet grass soaked through my jeans instantly. I couldn't breathe. I gasped for air, but my lungs felt like they were filled with concrete. Fausta stepped out onto the porch. She didn't run to me. She didn't look horrified. She looked annoyed. She crossed her arms over her chest and stared down at me. "Get up, Mabry," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut. "You are making a scene. Mrs. Higgins across the street is looking through her blinds. Have some dignity, for heaven's sake." "You threw them away," I sobbed, the words ripping out of my throat. I looked up at her, my vision blurred by hot tears. Why? Why didn't you just put them in my room? Why did you have to destroy them? Fosta inspected her fingernails, looking bored. Because you hoard his memory, Mabry. It's unhealthy. You talk to those pictures when you think no one is listening. We hear you. It's creepy. She walked down one step, her heels clicking on the wood. We did you a favor. Ripping off the Band-Aid is the only way you'll ever move on. You're 26 years old. You need to stop living in a mausoleum and start living in the real world. I pushed myself up from the grass. The sadness that had paralyzed me for 8 months was suddenly replaced by something else, something hotter, rage. It started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips, making them tingle. I wiped the mud from my knees and walked back up the driveway, staring my mother in the eye. This is my house, I whispered, my voice raspy. Kato bought this house for me. His name is on the deed. My name is on the deed. Your name is nowhere. Renly appeared in the doorway, holding a glass of orange juice, my premium juice, the kind I bought for special occasions. She rolled her eyes. And we are your family, she scoffed. We moved in to help you grieve, remember? You were a mess. You couldn't even cook toast. You should be grateful we're even here to make sure you eat. She took a sip, leaving a greasy pink lipstick stain on the rim of the glass. Besides, I need the space for the engagement party. Bridger's family is coming. They are wealthy, Mabry, old money. I can't have them staring at a shrine to a dead man while they eat quiche. It kills the mood. It makes people uncomfortable. Let's be clear about one thing. They didn't move in to help me. That was the lie they told the church group and the neighbors. The truth was far more selfish. Foster and my father, Garrick, wanted to renovate their own kitchen and master bathroom. They wanted marble countertops and a soaking tub, and they didn't want to live in construction dust for 6 months. So they rented out their house on Airbnb to make extra cash and crashed Kato's sanctuary rent-free. They framed it as supporting the grieving widow, but it was an invasion. They took over the master bedroom because Mom has a bad back. They filled the garage with their boxes. You are guests, I said, stepping into the hallway, my voice gaining strength. You are here because I allowed it, because I was too weak to say no. Garrick was sitting in the living room in Kato's favorite leather recliner. The chair still smelled faintly of the cedarwood cologne Kato wore. Garrick was watching a golf tournament, the volume turned up high. He didn't even look away from the screen when I walked in, mud on my jeans and tears on my face. Stop being dramatic, Mabry, he grunted. Just print new ones if it matters that much. Ink is cheap. You're ruining your mother's mourning with all this screaming. It's unchristian. They didn't understand. They didn't care to understand. Those were the original prints, signed by the photographer who had moved to Europe. The digital files were on Kato's laptop, the one that had crashed and fried its hard drive last month during a power surge. I didn't have backups. Those frames held the last physical proof of his smile on our wedding day, and they knew it. The rest of the week was absolute torture. The dynamic in the house shifted from passive-aggressive to openly hostile. Renly treated me like a hired maid for her upcoming event. She walked around the house with a clipboard, ticking off tasks, barking orders at me in my own home. Mabry, make sure you scrub the baseboards in the hallway, she ordered on Tuesday, pointing with a manicured finger. Bridger's mother is very particular about dust. She judges people for that. I don't want her thinking we live in filth. On Wednesday, she pointed to the mantel. And hide those urns, the little keepsake ones. They're creepy. Put them in the closet. Actually, put them in the basement. I don't want anyone seeing them. I stood there, clutching the dish rag, wanting to scream. But I didn't. I bit my tongue until it tasted like copper. They acted as if the photo incident hadn't happened. They expected me to swallow the abuse because family comes first and don't ruin your sister's moment. They thought I was broken, pliable, a doormat made of grief. But every time I looked at that empty, white wall where Kato used to smile at me, I didn't feel sadness anymore. I felt cold, calculating anger. I stopped crying in the shower. I started planning. I started watching them, nodding their schedules, waiting for the perfect moment. Sunday morning arrived with bright sunshine that felt mocking given the storm brewing inside me. The house smelled of hairspray and expensive perfume. Fosta came into my room without knocking, throwing the door open and letting the harsh hallway light flood in. "We are going to the 10:00 a.m. service," she announced, adjusting her elaborate, wide-brimmed church hat in my vanity mirror. She looked at my reflection with critical eyes. "We expect a roast in the oven when we get back. Make sure the potatoes are soft this time. Last week they were undercooked. And fix your face. You look haggard. Put on some blush. You look like a ghost." They were obsessed with looking like the perfect, pious family at church. They wanted the community to see them supporting the poor young widow. It was all performance art for social standing. If the pastor knew they had thrown my husband in the garbage, he would have fainted. "I'm staying home," I said quietly, pulling the covers up to my chin. "I have a headache. I didn't sleep well." "Lazy," Renly muttered from the hallway as she grabbed her designer purse. She popped her head in. "Just make sure the house is clean by the time we get back. I don't want to see a single speck of dust. Bridger is coming by later to finalize the layout." I waited. I stood by the living room window, hidden behind the heavy velvet curtains, my heart pounding in my throat. I watched as Fosta, Garrick, and Renly walked out the front door. They looked immaculate. Garrick in his suit, Fosta in her floral dress, Renly in silk. They piled into Garrick's luxury SUV. They waved at the neighbors, smiling their fake, church-ready smiles. Garrick honked the horn at the mailman, playing the role of the jovial neighbor, the picture of suburban holiness. I watched the red taillights turn the corner at the end of the street. I counted to 10. Then, the atmosphere in the house shifted, the oppression lifted. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. My hands were steady, steadier than they had been in months. I didn't call the police. I didn't call a friend to cry. I called Huck. Huck was a locksmith Cato used to use for his business properties. He was a big, bearded man with a kind heart who had come to Cato's funeral and cried in the back row. "Emergency call," I told him, my voice devoid of emotion. "Huck, I need all exterior locks changed. Front door, back door, garage, side door. Now, I'll pay double the Sunday rate if you can get here in 20 minutes. Huck arrived in 15 minutes, his work van screeching to a halt in the driveway. He jumped out, tool belt already strapped to his waist. He saw my red, swollen eyes. He walked into the living room and looked at the empty wall where Cato's pictures used to be. He had complimented them the last time he was here to fix a jammed window. He knew Cato. He had liked him. "What's going on, Mabry?" he asked, setting his heavy toolbox down with a thud on the porch. "You okay? You look like you've been through a war." "I'm evicting parasites," I said, my voice flat and hard. "They threw away his pictures, Huck. They threw the wedding photos in the trash because they didn't match the decor for Renly's party." Huck's face darkened, his jaw tightening under his beard. He didn't ask another question. He pulled out his power drill, checking the battery. "Say no more. I'll make this place Fort Knox. Nobody gets in here unless you hand them a key yourself." While the sound of the drill filled the entryway, vibrating through the floorboards and signaling the beginning of the end, I went to the guest rooms. I moved with a speed and efficiency that surprised me. I wasn't just cleaning, I was purging. I went to the room Fosta and Garrick had claimed. I opened the closet. I didn't pack their clothes nicely. I didn't fold their shirts or wrap their shoes in tissue paper. I grabbed the heavy-duty black trash bags from under the sink, the exact same brand they had used to dispose of Cato's photos. There was a poetic justice in it. I pulled Fosta's Sunday dresses off the hangers in clumps, hangers and all, and stuffed them into the bags. I threw Garrick's shoes in on top of them. I went to the bathroom. I swept their toiletries into a bag. Then I went to the front lawn. I found Garrick's golf clubs in the hallway. I didn't bag them. I walked out the front door and threw them, one by one, onto the grass. His driver, his putter. His irons, they scattered like pickup sticks. I went into Renly's room, the guest room she had painted pink without asking me. I started clearing out her nightstand. I yanked the drawer open and found her old iPad buried under a stack of bridal magazines. The screen lit up with a notification. It was open to a voice memo app she used to practice her vows and record her thoughts. The last recording was titled, "Vent Session Mom." The date was from last week. Curious, I pressed play. Renly's voice filled the room, tinny and cruel. I'm so sick of Mabry's widow act. It's been 8 months. Bridger keeps asking how she is, looking at her with those puppy dog eyes. I hate it. He should be looking at me. I'm the bride. I'm going to trash those ugly photos. She needs to realize I'm the main character now. It's my time. Then Fosta's voice on the recording, clear as day. Do it. She needs a push. Just don't let her see you do it. We'll say it was for her own good, that we were helping her mental health. She's too weak to fight back. I stood there, frozen. They didn't do it for my mental health. They didn't do it to help me move on. They did it out of jealousy. They did it because my grief was inconvenient for their spotlight. I saved the file to my phone and emailed it to myself. I had the smoking gun. Huck finished the locks just as I was tying off the last bag. New deadbolts, he said, handing me a set of shiny brass keys. They felt heavy and cool in my hand. Heavy duty, pick resistant. No one gets in unless you want them to. I also disabled the garage keypad so the code won't work anymore. Thank you, Huck, I said, handing him a wad of cash. You have no idea what this means to me. Call me if they give you trouble, he said, packing up his tools. I'll be around. I dragged 15 bulging black trash bags onto the front porch. I didn't line them up neatly. I stacked them in a chaotic pile that completely blocked the large front window. It looked like garbage day had come early. It looked like a barricade. I took a single white envelope, wrote eviction notice on it in Sharpie, and taped it to the new deadbolt at eye level. I went back inside. I locked the new deadbolt with a satisfying, heavy click. The sound echoed through the house, sealing me in and them out. I walked into the living room and sat in Kato's recliner. The house was silent, but it wasn't the empty, haunting silence from before. It was a clean silence, a reclaimed silence. For the first time in 6 months, I couldn't hear Fosta criticizing my cleaning. I couldn't hear Renly complaining about the wedding budget or her bridesmaids. I couldn't hear the TV blaring Garrick's golf tournaments. It was peaceful. I closed my eyes and breathed in the smell of the house. It smelled like lemon polish and freedom. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. 12:30 p.m. The SUV pulled into the driveway. I watched the Ring camera feed on my phone's screen. They got out, laughing, likely talking about the sermon or lunch. Garrick was loosening his tie, looking forward to his roast beef. They walked up the path, confident in their ownership of my space, completely oblivious to the shift in the universe. Fosta stopped first. She saw the massive pile of black bags on the porch. She adjusted her glasses, squinting. What in the world? She muttered. Did the garbage men miss a pickup? Why is there trash on the porch? Mabry knows better than this. Garrick stepped up to the door, looking annoyed. He put his key in the lock. He tried to turn it. It didn't move. He frowned, pulled the key out, checked it, and put it back in. He jiggled it violently. He put his shoulder into the door. Nothing. Mabry, he shouted, banging on the wood with his fist. Open the door, the lock is jammed, it's stuck. Hurry up, I'm hungry. Renly walked over to one of the black bags to move it out of her way so she could see into the window. She grabbed it roughly. The plastic ripped on the brick siding. Her silk blouses, the ones she needed for work the next day, spilled out onto the dirty porch, landing in a puddle of mud. "My clothes," she shrieked, her eyes bulging. She picked up a muddy blouse. "Mom, my clothes are in the trash. What is happening?" I pressed the microphone button on the Ring app. My voice projected through the doorbell speaker, clear and crisp, startling them. "The lock isn't jammed, Dad," I said, watching their reactions on my screen. "It's changed." They all jumped, looking at the camera lens as if it were an eye. "Mabry," Fosta hissed, leaning into the lens, her face distorted by the fisheye view. "What is this joke? Open this door right now. We have guests coming over later. This is childish. You are being ridiculous. We are hungry and tired." "No," I said calmly. "You don't have guests, and you don't have a home here anymore, because you don't live here." "We live here," Renly screamed, stamping her foot like a toddler. "This is an illegal eviction. You can't just kick us out. We have rights. I have rights. My makeup is in there." "Actually," I said, my voice steady, reciting the laws I had looked up while Huck was drilling. "You have a primary residence on Elm Street. You pay no rent here. You have no lease agreement. You don't contribute to utilities. In the eyes of the law, you are guests, and guests can be asked to leave at any time. Your status has been revoked effective immediately. I'm calling the police, Fosta threatened, pulling out her phone with a shaking hand. I will have them break this door down. You are stealing our property. You are having a mental breakdown. Go ahead, I said. I'll wait, but your property is on the porch. I suggest you load it before it rains. They actually called. 10 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. 2 officers got out, looking weary. Fosta immediately put on her best distressed mother act, clutching her pearls and forcing tears. My daughter is having a mental break, she told the cop, pointing a trembling finger at the house. She locked us out of our home. She's grieving and unstable. She threw our clothes in the mud. She needs to be committed for her own safety. The officer walked up to the door and knocked firmly. I opened it, holding the deed to the house in one hand and a copy of their property tax bill for their other house in the other. I was calm, collected, and ready. Officer, I said before he could speak, these people are my parents, but they do not live here. They are guests who have overstayed their welcome. They destroyed my personal property this week, specifically heirlooms from my late husband, and I no longer feel safe with them in my home. I have packed their belongings for them. The officer looked at the deed with my name and Cato's name. He looked at the tax bill proving they owned another home nearby. He looked at Fosta, whose act was slipping into pure rage. Ma'am, do you pay rent here? He asked Fosta. We are family, Fosta sputtered, offended. We don't pay rent, we help her. We are doing her a favor. So no lease. No, but. Then this is a civil matter, the officer said, stepping back and putting his thumbs in his belt. The homeowner has revoked your guest privileges. You are trespassing. You need to leave the premises immediately. Just then, another car pulled up to the curb. It was a sleek convertible. Bridger, Renly's fiancé, got out. He was holding a large bouquet of flowers for the planning brunch he thought was happening. He looked confused, scanning the chaotic scene. He saw the trash bags piled high. He saw the police cruiser. He saw Renly screaming at the cop, her face red and distorted with rage, her hair flying wild in the wind. He saw his future in-laws looking like criminals. What is going on? Bridger asked, walking up the driveway slowly. Renly, why are the police here? Why are your clothes on the lawn? Renly is moving out, I said from the doorway, loud enough for him to hear clearly. She needed to leave because my grief was too depressing for her aesthetic. Mabry, shut up. Renly lunged at me, trying to get past the officer. The cop held her back easily, stepping between us. Don't listen to her, Bridger, she's crazy. I held up my phone, which was connected to the Bluetooth porch speaker system. Bridger, you might want to hear why she threw away Cato's photos. She recorded her reasons on her iPad. She wanted you to hear her vows. I hit play. The audio boomed over the porch, echoing in the quiet neighborhood. Renly's voice. Bridger keeps asking how she is. I hate it. He should be looking at me. I'm the main character now. It's my time. I'm going to trash those ugly photos. The silence that followed was deafening. Bridger stood frozen on the lawn, the color draining from his face. The bouquet hung limp in his hand. He looked at Renly. He didn't see his beautiful, blushing bride-to-be. He didn't see the girl he proposed to. He saw a monster. He saw the cruelty she hid behind her smile. You threw away Cato's pictures? Bridger asked, his voice horrified. He was my friend, Renly. He introduced us. He was the best man at our engagement party. You threw him in the trash. It was just paper, Renly cried, turning to him, desperate, grabbing his arm. She was ruining our vibe. She was making everything about her tragedy. I did it for us, baby. We need a fresh start. Bridger pulled his arm away as if she burned him. He stepped back, looking at her with pure disgust. I think I'm going to go, he said quietly. He dropped the flowers on the lawn. They landed next to the trash bags, vibrant petals against black plastic. He turned around and walked back to his car. Bridger, wait, baby, don't listen to her. She's lying. Renly chased him, tripping over a black bag of her own clothes. She fell onto the grass, staining her silk dress green. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He got in his car, started the engine, and drove away. Fausta turned to me, her eyes filled with pure venom. "You destroyed your sister's engagement. You petty little witch. I hope you're happy." "No," I said. "You threw it away, just like the photos. You did this to yourselves. I just played the tape." The police officer cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama, but firm in his duty. "Folks, you have 10 minutes to clear these bags off the porch and vacate the property, or I will have to cite you for littering and trespassing. The homeowner wants you gone, and you have somewhere else to go." Garrick, looking defeated and humiliated as the neighbors watched from their windows, started loading the heavy trash bags into the back of his luxury SUV. He picked up his golf clubs from the lawn, checking them for scratches. He didn't say a word to me. He just hung his head. Fausta stood on the lawn, refusing to touch anything, staring at the house she thought she ruled, her face a mask of shock. It took them 8 minutes to load everything. As Garrick started the engine, the SUV weighed down by their belongings, Fausta yelled from the passenger window, her face twisted into a snarl. "You will die alone in that house, Mabry. You have no one. You chose a dead man over your living family. You will rot in there." I stood in the doorway, feeling the cool breeze on my face. I looked at the empty wall where Kato used to be. I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in months. "I'd rather be alone than with people who make me feel lonely," I said loudly. "And Kato isn't dead in here. He's everywhere." I shut the heavy door. I locked the deadbolt, click. I turned the porch light off. The next day, I went to a professional photo restoration studio downtown. I had the original negatives from the wedding photographer, files I had stored in a safety deposit box years ago, just in case of a fire. I ordered them in color this time. Vibrant. Alive. I bought new, beautiful gold frames. I spent the afternoon hanging them up on the wall, one by one, taking my time to level them perfectly. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was mine again. I sat in the recliner and looked at Kato's face, smiling down at me in full color. I drank my coffee in peace, watching the dust motes dance in the sunlight. My name is Mabry, and my walls are full of love.